Hello, this is Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com, bringing you a new janky build that I'm just starting to test out. Sultai mid-range is what I call it right now. I guess we'll keep this. We don't have any way to fill our graveyard quickly, but we have some early interaction. And the Murktide is always good. So hopefully we'll draw a Stitcher Supplier or a Thought Scour or something. Anyway, so Souls of the Lost I've encountered a couple times. Seems like a slightly different version of a Tarmogoyf. Some maybe a little less powerful, maybe a little bit more powerful depending on the build. And I wanted to test it out, and my first thought was it would fit nicely with Tarmogoyf and a Murktide Regent. And so what I've done here is jam the two, taking my Dimir Dragons deck to cut most of the dragons, and except for Murktide, to make room for Tarmogoyfs and Souls of the Lost. See what our opponent's up to. Force and negation is what they're up to. Okay, fair enough. Down to 4 cards for that force, so they must be, I imagine, some kind of control deck. They pitched a force too. So control, we do have our own counter spells main deck to help fight through that. We'll see what they're playing. I mean, it could be Rhinos. Rhinos play force and negation, at which point this fatal push could be good for us. Grief. All right, so it's Grixis Scam. That's unfortunate for us, as I'm sure they will be taking our Murktide Regent. They didn't even play a land. It's not Scam, or either way. All right, bye-bye Murktide. Our hand just got way worse. Wasn't that good to begin with. I mean, for maybe they're a Grixis build, they'll take the Fatal Push if they have a Ragavan play here. Yeah, they don't need to worry about the Murktide anytime soon. Or they have something else. Steam Vents, Ragavan. Nope, and we drew the Fatal Push, so joke's on them. Ha ha ha. Alright, we could... they're down to 2 cards. So they pitched a Grief and a Street Wraith, so we'll pretend like we have counter magic. How about that? 2 cards isn't much, so they hopefully don't have much of a follow-up play. They didn't have the Ragavan. Breeding Pool, so Teamer. 4 colors, I don't know. Something to fill our graveyard would be really good. Oh, another Murktide. That would be the opposite of something to fill a graveyard. So it looks like me and my opponent are just going to be... It's kind of whoever draws the first threat or whoever can stick the first threat. Right now, 2 Murktides are not looking great with no way to fill our graveyard. We would love a Stitcher Supplier off the top. Opponent stuck on 2 land, and we draw a useless island. Alright, we're getting closer to this Murktide though. Next turn we can play a 5/5 Murktide. Just how they drew it up when they designed Modern Horizons 2. We're no longer in the free section of play, we're in the best of 3, so we should be able to finish this match for the video. Up to 4 cards makes me think our opponent probably has a bunch of counter magic. Or they're a Rhino deck. So we hit another useless land. I mean, I'm not even sure we want to run this Murktide out, to be honest. Just right into counter magic. And I know we have it. And we'll give it one more turn. They know we have it, so maybe they'll draw. We don't want to tap out all the way and leave ourselves open to a Ragavan hit. They would have cast Ragavan at this point by now. They took our Fatal Push, so... We could not get this Triome and use it as a cycler. We already have we have 2 greens, so we'll leave it in the deck just in case we want to cycle it later. If we happen to draw it here, for instance. All right, so Bobble. At least it gives us something in the graveyard to help with. See See what our opponent's drawing. See what they're up to. Oh, it is a Cascade deck. So they just they've had the one creature. So let's go ahead and run out our Murktide. Basically so that if they do get a living end, we have something that we can get back from the graveyard, even if it is an unimpressive 3/3. And if they have the counterspell, then that keeps them from cascading this turn. Subtlety. Sure. All the answers. Maybe they just don't have the cascade spell. They are drawing into something to put in their yard at least. Honestly, I think we're just going to put this on the bottom. We don't even want it anymore. We have one in our hand. We have no way. We can cast it for full value next turn, almost. I guess not next turn, but hold up this counter magic. Did we play a land? Wouldn't want to miss our land drops. Probably should have held on to that in hindsight. Or we can just sacrifice it if we draw Souls of the Lost, which, by the way, would be a terrible draw anyway. So Tarmogoyf would be okay, since our opponent has some things in their yard. Yeah, I mean, typically when I see a Murktide open in hand, I want to keep it. We just have gotten a little bit unlucky and not drawing much by way of graveyard hate. All right, yeah. Subtlety was a perfect answer for them because it kept the creature from hitting the yard via a counterspell. They're going to get back a subtlety and a grief. We should have saved our fetch land, clearly. Mistakes are being made, folks, but it is late over here. This is only my second time playing the deck. I've played Dimir enough, though, to know better. And I knew the grief was in the yard. The Murktide never hit the battlefield, so we can't cast a Fatal Push. So I have a feeling they're going to be taking. If I was them, I don't even know what I would take, to be honest. And they could stack it so that maybe the grief triggers and then that triggers so they can see our hand and then return the grief to their hand. Not sure how that's going to work. Yep. I assume the Fatal Push is going. What is our best draw? See what they take first, but yeah, the Murktide. I mean, that's clearly if we hit Thought Scour, that would be our best draw because we could, at least we're going to get 2 draws now. Counterspell's good. A little late to the party, but still. See what they decide to do this turn. So yeah, taking the Murktide's the safe bet because we could draw a Thought Scour and then suddenly we could just cast Fatal Push for no value. Thought Scour, hit a bunch of instants of sorceries and suddenly have a 7/7. So we still would like to hit a Murktide and a Thought Scour. So what do we get first? A useless land. Yeah, this game's over. It was a bit awkward with no way to fill our graveyard and 2 Murktides. We did have some interaction. A little bit of a misplay where we could have saved our fetch for killing the grief with the trigger on the stack. It would have given us more time to find an answer. So what is this? 5-color, I just don't even know. 5-color living end? All right, fair enough, I guess, and another Fatal Push, so we will scoop it up. Well, we do have some answers. So we got the Leyline of the Void precisely for this type of matchup. We got a couple more counter spells we can play. And I'm not sure we want anything else, to be honest. Thoughtseize just fills the graveyard for them, although it can snag the Cascade spell, which is a big deal. Clearly they value, I mean, they forced it. So what do we find room? We could take out the Bobble. That's the least impactful, even though it's nice to draw the cards. Opponent's going to be doing a lot of subtlety shenanigans to balance our Murktides. We can bring in our own subtleties. Take out the Fatal Pushes looked really bad. They're not as bad as they looked, but they're not as good as, I mean, they hit the, it doesn't look like our opponent's playing Rhinos. They're playing 5-color Cascade shenanigans, or cycling, living in shenanigans. So I think the Fatal Pushes are going to be really underwhelming in this matchup. The Bobbles help turn on Souls of the Lost, but so do the Ley Lines if we mill them. Spell Pierce. Yeah, I mean, I think we run it like that. This is why we bring in the Ley Lines. Okay, well, I mean, this is a hand. I mean, we have a way to interact a little bit, way to fill our graveyard, way to some hand disruption. We don't have the Ley Line, which is unfortunate. That's what we really, I mean, do we mulligan and hope to get the Ley Line and just assume that that is enough to wreck their day? Because otherwise, this is quite a nice hand. We just don't have the graveyard 8. Can we win a fair I think we're gonna, oh man, it pains me, but I think we're gonna try one time for the Ley Line and get max punished. Okay, well, not max punished, but yeah, we'll keep this. We have 2 Souls of the Lost, Stitcher Supplier, Thought Scour, both ways to fill the graveyard, which is really sweet. Get rid of the Swamp. It's not as good as our first hand, unfortunately. We don't have a way. The first hand we had lots of interaction, so we might be very much regretting keeping or shipping that one. I think on the play, so we're 3/4s now. Okay, so what we're going to do next turn is play a Souls of the Lost. I hope to draw a land. I kind of want to go land because we can go next turn Souls of the Lost. If we draw a land, then for turn 3 we can do another Souls of the Lost plus Thought Scour. So that was good. We hit our land. Try and get in a point of damage. Hopefully they won't feel the need to kill this. See if they have the subtlety. Do we take the Breeding Pool or the Watery Grave? We want to be able to cast a Tarmogoyf. So hopefully this resolves and we'll put our opponent to the test. As we get to mill ourselves again, grow it even larger, we hope. So this is a turn 2, at the very least 5/6, about to be a 6/7 with this in the yard before it triggers. Let's see what our opponent does. Do they have an answer? Hopefully they did not play Spell Snare. They didn't see any 2-drops last game, so I don't know why they would unless they looked in our yard. We didn't ever put anything like that in our yard. I think they're probably just fetching up a land. Maybe not. Maybe they did put in Spell Snare. Nope, cycling. All right, fair enough. Well, we really need a counterspell now because they're going to have some big fatties. 6/7. All right, casual 2 mana, or turn 2, 6/7. Will it be fast enough? Will 2 of them be fast enough? We'll find out. So next turn we can do Souls of the Lost and Thought Scour. Hopefully grow our both of them into gigantic threats. And the good thing about filling our yard with creatures, unfortunately, we've only gotten the one Stitcher Supplier. But we could Thought Scour, and then if we hit a Murktide, I don't know. We'll see what we draw. Counterspell might be our best draw, to be honest, and just hold up Counter Magic. And hope they don't have Cascade and Force. I mean, they may want to counter this if they just have a handful of interaction. They do not. And this is now an 8-9. So since our opponent's going to be able to Cascade next turn, and they have a bunch of things in their graveyard, we're going to, and what do we have? Leyline. We'll get a Stitcher Suppliers back, and then we can cast this Souls of the Lost. Whatever play land. At least have something on the battlefield to block some of these big guys, assuming they have a Cascade spell, which I imagine they do. See how many creatures they can get. They right now have quite a bit, but see if they can get any more. Yep, one more. Yeah, not looking good. I mean, we'll get a Stitcher Supplier and then have a Souls of the Lost, but we're going to have a hard time surviving even that because I'll have a bunch of it. Well, we should be able to survive at least. Well, we'll see. Should be able to survive one attack. You only went 2 cards. All right. Yep. Living End. I guess this is why we mulliganed for the Leyline, and if we had kept that original hand, we would have the counterspell, but whatever. It is what it is. We're learning the deck. It was worth the risk. I think Leyline would have shut down all these shenanigans. We have an 11-12 though. There's our Murktide. So that is a good draw for us. See if we can't figure out a way out of this, because what this does is gives us a big blocker, puts us to 12. So we go block, block, block. Yeah, I mean, I think this is our out. So what we'll start with is another Souls of the Lost. It's just a 12-13, no biggie. See if this draws out a subtlety. Opponent's probably smart, if they have it, not to cast it, because then we have the Murktide. So then we'll get rid of this, 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 and then 1, 2, 3. So we'll have to shrink our dude just a little bit. But we have them dead on board with the flyer, right? They don't have any flyers out. So hopefully they don't have another Cascade spell, basically. If they do, it would be effectively a board wipe that would give us a Tarmogoyf and a Murktide. Declare attackers. We will not attack yet. See what our opponent has by way of answer for this. I mean, it's been a good game. We were able to, hopefully, we were able to put up a fight against that gigantic Living End. Force our opponent to have something. Because right now we can block pretty profitably and swing in for the kill on our turn. What does this have? Oh, a Swamp Walk. Okay, well, we can't block that. So it looks like opponent is presenting. Spell Pierce is good, but it doesn't hit. It would be better if it was a counterspell. So we will Hopefully, if they do have their Cascade, will be some. If they're hoping the Cascade will this, maybe the Spell Pierce will get them. Oh, they have Reach. Read the cards is the first rule of Magic, folks. Read the cards. And that might be it. Sneaky Reach, man. Sneaky Reach. All right. Well, we're still not dead yet. They still don't have us dead on board. Sneaky Reach is good, though. Gaining life for them is really good, too, because that means they're going to win the race. Generous Ant-Man, Lord of the Rings. This forest cycling cycle from Lord of the Rings has been really powerful for Modern. They're going to play around Spell Pierce. Looks like it. They shocked themselves. So another version of this, building around the Souls of the Lost I want to try is Jund, or at least red, so that we can give it, using Footfall Crater, give it Trample. That is a creature. Okay. Let's top 3 cards of target player's library, then put them back in any order. I assume they're going to look at ours. That's what I would be doing. Make sure that we get a land, a useless land. Yep, that's what I'd do. Maybe it's 3 Murktides on top. There's 2 in the yard. We're at 9, so they could go ahead and swing out and put us to dead, right? 5, well, almost dead. 5, 8. One more hit for this, and then we're dead. I mean, we can attack back, but they just have too many jump blockers. And what we really need is a way to draw 3 cards and cast 3 creatures, and none of that is possible with our build. Anyway, it was a good game. Learning some things about how to play this deck against Living End. That first 7 had a lot of interaction. Maybe we should have kept it and trusted that we could rely on that and not the graveyard hate to win the game. Instead, we mulliganed for a Late Honor of the Void. Didn't get it. Kept a decent 6, but the reason why we mulliganed for a Late Honor of the Void is precisely this, to avoid this scenario. And it's possible we should have kept a handful of interaction and trusted that our counter spells and whatnot would have gotten us there. It is what it is. At least we got a match in. Land, I imagine. Just a useless Thoughtseize. This guy's a 12-13. So yeah, we're just dead on board. We'll send a message here. It's late, I should just concede. Anyway, interesting match up. Cascade decks are really powerful. One reason I have always wanted Graveyard Hate in my sideboard. And yeah, I mean, what can I say? I've already said it. Interesting. I'm interested to see where this deck goes in the future, how I can tweak it, make it better, things like that. What we're gonna get? We milled another Murktide Regent, Late Honor of the Void. Let's just see what our opponent's up to with this 5-color pile that they have of Cycling, Mystical Dispute, Grief, Generous. Yeah, I mean, their hand is just stacked. All right, well, this is Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com. I'll tell my opponent. This is Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. This has been another edition of Keeping Modern Tanky. I'm Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com. Check out my website where you can read articles on my commander decks, my various modern brews, in my science fiction and fantasy novel that I'm publishing serially every month. CyclesGaming.com. Be sure to click that like button and subscribe button on YouTube, and I'll see you on the next one.